A declaration of war against the cartels by missile. That's what seems to have happened in the Caribbean after a ship leaving Venezuela, a go-fast boat with drugs in it, was blown up by what seems to be a missile strike. And now the Trump administration is not only discussing what happened, but saying it's the beginning of a whole change in policy. Look,
I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs. Last year, under the Biden administration, all 4 years, 100,000 Americans died from drug-related from drugs, from the use of drugs, many of which poured in from Central and South America through our southwest border. Now, we're sealing the border, but President Trump is willing to go on offense in ways that others have not been.
There are some things to work out here. First of all, the narco-terrorist designation is something that shouldn't just be words. It shouldn't just be something that goes through some bureaucratic system to go then be talking points for the Treasury Department or the State Department that they're doing something. There should be consequences to being labeled a narco trafficker. Now, I understand arrest, seizure of funds, but that hasn't been enough to stop the narco trafficking rings that continue to bring large amounts of drugs into our country and kill a lot of Americans in the process. Remember, it's not just the drug overdoses, although that's the number that we most understandably focus on when we talk about the casualties from the war on drugs. On our side, it's also the societal decay and the criminality that builds around these different drug activities. So drug gangs in Chicago, for example, when people talk about gang activity, what are gangs involved in? Usually drugs, maybe selling guns, but selling drugs, drug wars for turf. And that leads to a lot of the homicides, right? Because how do they fund themselves? How do they get money? And how do they try to get more clout on the street? They're selling illegal drugs. And this has been the case for as long as any of us have been alive. So this is what's going on. And the Trump administration has said this is not going to continue the way that it has been in the past. You know, we used to talk about a war on drugs in a rhetorical sense under the Reagan administration. But then I know that there were DEA efforts and paramilitary stuff going on. But when you're now just going to blow up designated narco traffickers as a military target, which is what just happened, this is a dramatic escalation. We've never seen anything quite like this before. And I think you're going to see a lot more in the military takes on the cartel realm. I've been told this for a while by the Trump White House. This is going to be happening. That they're going to essentially take the counterterrorism apparatus and use it as a counter-narcotics apparatus. So think of it this way. The federal agencies, the technology, the infrastructure, the personnel that they have used in the past to go after al-Qaeda is now going to be used to go after the Maduro cartel. Maduro is actually a designated head of a drug cartel. It's important to remember that. The head of Venezuela is a designated drug cartel leader. And he's making probably billions of dollars off of illegal drug sales in the United States and has to distribute that among his cronies and others at some level. But he's making a lot of money, and he's a very bad, very dangerous guy. So when we talk about what can be done here, let's understand what has been done in the past fails, does not stop the importation of these illegal drugs into the country in tremendous quantity. And something now is very different from the Trump administration approach. Kinetic strikes, as they used to say in the old counterterrorism days, missiles, warheads on foreheads. This is the era we're entering of the actual war on drugs. And now you have the Mexican cartels to think about as well. I think for a lot of us, Tren de Aragua and ships off of Venezuela, that's one thing. The Mexican drug cartels, we have seen the extreme, first of all, they're right up against the United States, or up against our border. We've seen the extreme violence that they are capable of on their side of the border. You go back to 2010, roughly, and 11, 12, what was going on in Juarez. It was Al-Qaeda level sadistic violence from the cartels. And they've had many years now of getting rich, not just on the illegal importation of illegal selling of drugs, also the human trafficking component. They've made a ton of money bringing illegals into this country because they control that smuggling operation as well. So they're incredibly well funded. And we may go after them and find that this starts to look a lot more like a major paramilitary operation, something along the lines of what we saw in the War on Terror, not with 100,000 U.S. troops in Mexico, obviously, but drone strikes, special operations personnel. This could be happening. The fact that the Trump administration is willing to blow a speedboat with, I think 11 people in it, just blow it up, that means that they're taking a whole new view of what is permissible in this war and what's going on here. So it's now our sponsor, Paradigm Press. It's not unusual for new tech companies to find their 15 minutes of fame. Remember that open source AI model developed in Asia? We talked about this a while back. Everybody was talking about it. They showed up strong, a company based in China with AI technology that rivaled a well-known AI chatbot and others for attention, app downloads, and more. Just their presence was enough to make everyone think that maybe other AI entities were spending too much money when they could do it for just a few $1 million. The presence of this temporarily wiped out $1 trillion in market value. A China-based entity with AI technology, not a good combo on U.S. soil, served as a reminder to all of us of how important it is to develop AI technology in America. And the Trump administration agrees. Guess what? They're working on something I call the Manhattan Project to take back our lead in the AI race. I break it all down in a brand new interview, including the companies that I believe could soar when this comes about. Find this interview and all the details online on a new website. We're taking this one off air, so to speak. Offair25.com. That's offair25.com. Paid for by Paradigm Press. Now, I actually want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with the Chris Martin of what's that band called? Coldplay situation here. Just take a little diversion for a minute. This guy brings some Israelis up on stage, and he says, "Oh, well, here's what he says."
Where did you come from today? From Israel. Okay, well, wow. Okay, well, listen. I'm going to say this. I'm very grateful that you're here as humans, and I'm treating you as equal humans on earth, regardless of where you come from or don't come from. Thank you for being here. We're grateful, and thank you for being loving and kind. And although it's controversial, maybe, I also want to welcome people in the audience from Palestine, because we have a belief that we're all equally human. And, yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to treat you like humans. And hey, everybody in the audience, let's talk about Palestine here for a minute. Hey, Palestinians in the audience. He thinks he's being a good guy, actually. What's funny here is he thinks, and he's not a very smart guy. You know, you could say he's a good songwriter, got a nice voice or whatever. He's a very limited understanding of politics, the world, and reality. But this just goes to show you, I don't think that Chris Martin of Coldplay would do this to any other nationality in the world. I don't think he would do it to Russians. I don't think he'd do it to North Koreans. I don't think he would feel the need to say, well, clearly you're from like the bad people place, which is in this case Israel, and I want to tell all the people that you're oppressing, in this case Palestine, that I'm with them too, but I'll treat you like a human. This goes to the brain rot around the issue of Israel and Palestine, and that so many people would think, just their gut instinct is that there is a need, they have a need to express to everybody that they have a problem with Israel and that they are on the side ultimately of the Palestinians and all this. And it shouldn't have to be this way. It should not have to be this situation. But the media, in a lot of cases, is caught up in this victim ideology and this victim narrative of the Palestinians as the innocent victims of this whole situation. Even more so, you know, there's more animosity for somebody like this lead singer of Coldplay. There's more animosity toward Israel than there is toward Russia. Think about that. That's the gut instinct of a doctrinaire makes it sound too fancy, of a superficial, surface level lib leftist today is, yeah, I have to side with Palestine over Israel, and I'm more angry at Israel than I even am at Russia when it comes to Ukraine. So you see this on display, and it's indicative of a mindset with a lot of these people who go around saying they care so much about Palestine. As has been pointed out many times, if the people in Palestine, or rather in Gaza, not in Palestine, if the people in Gaza if the whole plan was to kill them all, why haven't the Israelis killed them all? Because they could do it. If it was starvation, why are the Israelis providing them food? Because they're providing them food. This is really, when you think through this, you can find very quickly that there are lies being told. Our sponsor here is Preborn. Look, we want to save lives from abortion every day in this country. And for our friends working at the Preborn network of clinics, they're doing that. They're actually on the front line saving lives from abortion. Thousands and thousands of women across the country right now are thinking about, what should I do? I have an unplanned pregnancy. I'm in a crisis moment. Should I have an abortion or should I have my child? Preborn offers these women love, support, and an ultrasound. Just come in, meet your baby, and let's talk. Preborn is an incredible organization, saving so many lives in this way. They've saved 350,000 babies through this life-giving work to date. And so many mothers have an entirely new outlook and love in their heart because of Preborn being there for them and helping them make the right choice, the choice for life. Your support monthly to Preborn is critical. For $28 a month, every month you could be sponsoring an ultrasound and helping to save a tiny baby's life currently in the womb, help it get out there into the world. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250. Say the word baby or go to preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK, sponsored by Preborn. And that now you got Malcolm Gladwell who's come out and said that he was a coward on the trans issue, and he takes some ownership of that, some responsibility for that. He's a very rich, very famous guy, probably the most financially successful pop journalist, I guess you'd say, of his generation. And he wouldn't tell the truth on the trans thing in sports specifically. Now, this is interesting to me because I'm seeing people say woke is dead. I see this online. Woke is not dead. Woke is the ultimate zombie ideology because it was never about a good argument. It's just about power. So I want to remind everybody who is maybe a little too final, a little too triumphant in their view of this, that woke can make a comeback. These arguments, this ideology that pushed this, was rooted in raw power, emotional blackmail, and an ability to get people to go against what they knew to be publicly true in order to really debase them and debase their intellect, right? Because once, as I've said so many times, once you get people to lie about the most obvious things, you can get people to lie about all the things. And that there are now public figures who will come forward and say that they were unwilling to speak the truth on this, I think tells you a lot about how powerful the apparatus was, how powerful the system was that was pushing along these lies. And it is unrepentant. And the people who truly believe this stuff, to the degree that any of us can tell what that number is or what that percentage would be, the people who truly believe this stuff, they still believe it. Because it was never rooted in what is true. It was rooted in what they want to feel and how they want to position themselves vis-a-vis others. And that has not changed. So woke is in recession. Woke is in retreat. But I do not believe woke is dead. And if it is dead, it's a zombie ideology. It's going to wake from the grave and try to bite us. It's just a question of when. So do not lose your vigilance. Do not lose your sense of this is something we may have to deal with again in the not too distant future. We're not going to have Trump, who's an incredible brawler against this stuff, forever leading the movement. You know, things can change in a hurry. Trump's only got one more term here, and then there's going to be an election. And I'm telling you, if Democrats find a way to get back into power, they will try to force this crazy ideological stuff on us once again. All right, there's one statistic that no one's happy to hear about, but you need to know. Home invasions happen nationwide every 30 seconds or so. No matter what the number of home security systems installed is, it's happening far too often. This is why it makes sense to protect yourself. There's a company by the name of Sabre, S-A-B-R-E, does a great job of manufacturing non-lethal weapons and devices to protect you and your family. Sabre products have safeguarded hundreds of thousands of people. Sabre's pepper sprays, pepper gels, and projectile devices are all proudly made here in the USA. They make a big impact, and they're empowering to use. Their projectile devices in the shape of a rifle or pistol are recommended by many law enforcement professionals. Go check out what Sabre has. Go to sabreradio.com. That's S-A-B-R-E radio.com, or call 844-824-SAFE, 844-824-SAFE. Thanks for hanging out for the Buck Brief or the Buck Podcast or whatever we're calling this these days. Call it whatever you like. Shields high.